Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles, hot off the Grand Slam of Darts, which is now in the books. And we're just going to be doing a quick review and a look forward to this week with the Players' Championship finals. And of course, at this time of the year in the darting season, the World Championship is never far from the minds of a darts fan. We've got 3 darts fans here tonight. We've got Ozzy Smith, special guest again, is back. We've got Matt Pyman Hill as normal. And then we've got myself, who is a long-standing and doesn't ever go anywhere. So, no messing around, Oz. We're going straight in. The Grand Slam won by Gerwyn Price. I thought it was a cracking tournament, but there's only one place to start, the final or the final day, and Gerwyn Price as the winner. What did you make of it?
I thought he was excellent, absolutely excellent. Throughout the tournament as well, really. I thought, I think he had that one scare in the group stages where I think it was Nathan Rafferty pushed him all the way. And aside from that, I think he had a bit of a steady performance against Bradley Brooks, which I'll talk about later down the line, but seemed to be a bit of a common factor for many of players in the tournament. The game that we thought, we may slip up on was Johnny Clayton, but I thought he was the better player throughout. I know averages may say otherwise, but I thought, given the way Price clapped somewhat earlier this year, against Clayton when he was well ahead, I thought it was a very good win. And then James Wade, I thought 16-9 flattered Wade a little bit. I thought he absolutely battered James Wade. And likewise in the final, possibly the worst prediction of the lot, where I said Peter Wright wouldn't even qualify from the group stages. He gets to the final, but was well and truly outplayed by one of, if not the best player in the world. It's either him or his compatriot Johnny Clayton. But I thought Gerwyn Price looked back to his best. I think he comes under, particularly from the commentary people like Wayne Mardle, he gets a lot of unnecessary criticism, talking about, he needs to be more consistent, he needs to be this, he needs to be that. Well, he's not doing too bad, is he? And, I think they'll go on about Clayton, being tremendously, I always say he's got this false ranking at the moment, and Clayton will rightfully go up to probably 2 or 3 in the world. Whereas Price is number 1. And for this tournament, if you like the price, no pun intended, like the price of a short price favourite in Gerwyn Price for the Worlds, this tournament just sets you up because he looked back to his very best. He had the bit between his teeth. He loved going against the crowd, particularly in the Bradley Brooks match where, Brooks gave it him back a little bit, but Price seemed to relish off that. And he just went from strength to strength. So I thought Price was excellent, always guarantees entertainment, throwing very, very well. And he's going to be a difficult man to beat.
Yeah, he dominated the last day for me, Price, with the 2 results that you mentioned. And he definitely has got this habit of growing into tournaments. He certainly did that in the World Championships last year, saved his best till right near the end. And I think he did that in this tournament as well. That Bradley Brooks game was a cracker. Because of Bradley Brooks mainly, but Price was giving it to the crowd. Johnny Clayton went off favourite against Gerwyn Price in the quarterfinal. Johnny Clayton went off 4-5, and Gerwyn Price was about even money. That is a statement in itself. And then, like you say, he's dominated the final day, and he's hardened up in the World Championship markets. He's now 7-2 clear favourite. Maybe a week or 10 days ago, Gerwyn Price and Van Gerwen were pretty much the same price. Pyman, same question to you. The winner, Gerwyn Price.
Yeah, you've both covered it really. Very impressive. I wish someone could have given him half a game on the final day. I was left thoroughly disappointed with what had been a great tournament. Thought he had a really anticlimactic finish. James Wade with his foot injury limping up to the board, averaging about 70 something for half of the final, by which point Price was away and gone. And then had a little wobble towards the end where Wade cobbled another 3 or 4 legs together when he shouldn't have, because really that was such a one-sided affair. It was a really tough watch, to be honest. And then in the other semi-final, Peter Wright benefiting from Michael Smith kind of getting a little bit of finishing line nerves, which we've seen before. And that was a shame because Michael Smith's, I know you're going to touch on him more, Adam, but he had a really good tournament up until that point, but he will be remembered for probably Wright winning the last 8 legs of that semi-final, unfortunately. So there we are. And then in the final, Peter Wright looked fatigued, he looked knackered, and he looked like it just wasn't working for him. He knew he was beat about 5 or 6 legs in. and it was just a case of waiting for Price to get over the finishing line, which again, he had a very brief stumble with where Wright took out a 155 out of nowhere, which was about as entertaining as it got, to be honest. But Price can only beat what was in front of him, and his averages in the knockout stages, as Oz alluded to, only a 92 average in beating Bradley Brooks, but then 98 against Johnny Clayton, 102 against Wade, and 103 in the final. So progressed, grew into the tournament. We got some things wrong in our predictor, as usual, plenty wrong. But one thing we did allude to is that the cream generally rises to the top in this tournament as the format extends, and sure enough, Price really did rise to the occasion as it went on. I thought Michael Van Gerwen was unlucky. It looked like we were destined for a Van Gerwen versus Price final, which I am confident Van Gerwen would have given him a lot sterner test than both Wright and Wade managed to on the final day. But alas, Michael Smith turned up, started hot against Van Gerwen, and therefore we didn't get to see that. But can't knock Price at, beat everything in front of him and did it with a minimum of fuss. I personally don't feel like I learned anything that I didn't already know about him. I knew he was in good nick. We're only seeing him for the TV tournaments now. He continues to impress. He'd be a hard man to beat, but we knew that already. And he's a deserved outright favourite in the world's market.
Yeah, agree. I'm going to give a special mention to Michael Smith. His quarterfinal win over Van Gerwen, 16-13, could have been a little bit wider than that in reality. Not blow you over averages, but that's the best we've seen Michael Smith for a very long time, particularly on TV. He has done really well on the tour, actually, this year. We'll come to that later in the week. But yeah, just very switched on from Smith, no emotion, just getting the job done. Took a few knocks from Van Gerwen in that game. I think Van Gerwen took a 164 or 140 something, and Smith kept coming back. Really mature performance from Smith. And then, as you say, Pineman, is 12-8 up against Peter Wright in the semi-final, Michael Smith, and goes on to lose the next 8 legs. It's just really completely the opposite of what he needed, given the maturity he showed in his previous game against Van Gerwen. And, people will roll out the, same old Michael Smith criticism, if you like, that he can't get across the finish line in the big tournaments. Shame. I felt for him, to be fair, and I have been a detractor of his for rolling over in finals before. I felt for him there. A couple of other things to shout. I thought there's just some belting games across the whole piece, really. MVG and Anderson in round 2, really enjoyed that. Just shows that Anderson, when he fancies it and when he switched on, and he says as much in his interviews, he can really still mix it with the big boys, but maybe just not on a consistent basis throughout the season. Cracking game that was, 10-8 to Van Gerwen. Already mentioned Price against Brooks. Price against Clayton was another cracker as well. So other than the final day, Pineman, as you've mentioned, where it was dominated by Price, there was some absolute crackers throughout. Was there any one who deserves a special mention from you, Pineman?
Yeah, I think we should mention Nathan Rafferty. I thought he was, a very easy name to discount. Looking at the draw, we'd seen very little of him, and although we knew that he'd done it on the youth circuits and whatnot, it's a different kettle of fish to come in against these caliber of players. He was extremely unlucky against Gerwyn Price to go down 5-4, and there was a feeling then, certainly on my end, that was maybe his chance. He probably needed to. I kind of thought that would be his peak performance, and that he would struggle to replicate that. So to then go out and, get a comprehensive victory against Martin Schindler and then beat Krzysztof Ratajski in a deciding leg, which is no mean feat. I know Ratajski wasn't really at it, but I'm really impressed with the way he plays, Rafferty. Very low energy, doesn't seem to get flustered. He's got quite a rhythmic, relaxed throw. So it seemed like he could keep that going for a long period. And thoroughly deserved to get through the group. Obviously bumping into Johnny Clayton, averaging 105. No shame in losing that one. But excited to see a bit more of him. And then I guess in terms of the other player that I would mention, well, there's a few, but we should just maybe flag Rob Cross because we all fancied him beforehand. He started very well in his first 2 group games. And then unfortunately for him, bumped into a James Wade that has suddenly found some form. Wade sensational in their group meeting. And then Cross made easy work of Joyce in his first knockout game, averaging well over a ton. But in the rematch with Wade, he just made too slow a start, unfortunately. And
frustrating.
By the time he started playing well, It was. I think it ended up 16-14, and there was a leg at 15-14 on Wade's darts where Cross effectively had 15 darts from 300 and something, which would have had him throwing for the match, and he managed to not even leave a 2-dart finish after those 15 darts. So Wade gave him the opportunity and he couldn't take it. But generally, he started slow. He still managed to average around the 98 mark. So he's in great nick, Cross. And we were just on the wrong side of one there, I thought.
Ozzy, any other highlights for you away from the obvious?
A couple of things. Pyman just mentioned one of them, actually, and it's James Wade. One that, he was going into the last group game against Rob Cross and he had to win and win well. And he did exactly that. And you've got to feel for Jim Williams, who, doesn't always perform on the big stage. And in this competition, he did. I mean, he got a win over James Wade in the first round, battered Boris Kirchmer, and then only just lost out to Rob Cross. And we did mention it in the initial preview about how important it would be for legs for and against. And that's exactly what Williams went out on. But James Wade, Pyman said it right, he's found some form at the right time and he's looked good in doing it as well. Usually James Wade scrapes through games, it's rare that he always looks great in doing so. But I thought in this tournament he looked as good as we've seen him for a long time, bar the Gerwyn Price semi-final, where I think, did he run out a bit of steam? Did it just not click for him? But I thought, in the Cross game, I thought he was excellent. And only towards the back end, that's where Wade wins his games as well. He's got the ability to dig in. And then the other one for me is Bradley Brooks. But I'm not going to sing his praises because he qualified. I think he seemed to benefit from players just having a massive off day against him. Mervyn King was awful against him, absolutely appalling. King averaging 82. We have not seen Mervyn have, turn those averages in for a long, long time. Johnny Clayton, he was the anomaly in terms of didn't put in a poor performance where he averaged 103.4. And then again in the final group stage, Rusty Jake Rodriguez, somebody Pyman said was the better player than his brother, again just turned out a trash 86.4, and Brooks only had to average a meager just under 90, and he qualifies. And then even in the second round, we were talking about he had a very good game with Gerwyn Price, but I thought Price played better against Martin Schindler and lost than he did against Bradley Brooks and won. And again, Brooks goes down 10-8, but averaging 88, and Price was down in the low 90s. So I just thought it was a bit of an anomaly, really. He's qualified, but seemed to just take advantage of poor performances. And look, and I guess, in this short format, that's exactly what you need to do. I enjoyed the tournament, actually. I think there's some groans about it, which I might touch on at the end of the video in terms of like the qualifying things and players that were in the tournament and players that missed out on it. But yeah, all in all, I thought it was a really enjoyable tournament and some surprises as well. Shout out to Nathan Rafferty, who I think I described him as the whipping boy of the group. And yeah, got that one wrong, didn't I?
Well, I and us, all of us were critics of some of the qualifying, but the likes of Bradley Brooks and Rafferty have really brought something different to the tournament. So I'm happy to admit I was wrong there and forget the averages in that Brooks and Price game. Gerwyn Price tried to intimidate the young lad. Right? And Bradley Brooks came right back at him. Forget the averages. He came right back at him and he dug in. And he had his nose in front, and then Price, gave it the roar, and you thought that was it. And Brooks came again. I thought that was really quite good. There was 3 bets put up by me. Cross, we've already touched on, who could never really get in front of Wade, and he only needed to win 3 legs against Wade in their group game to win the group and have a winning bet for me, and obviously he went on to win 2. Joe Cullen, who we've not mentioned yet, was another one of mine. He didn't get anywhere near Michael Smith and Mr. Host of Doubles. And finally, Gabriel Clements, who was an 80-1 shot and the only player in the whole tournament to win his first 2 group games and not qualify was Gabriel Clements. He only needed to win 4 legs in his final game against the Queen, Fallon Sherrock, and he went on to only win 3 legs in that one. So I was on the wrong end of the talking point pretty much of the first half of the tournament, where Fallon Sherrock again has raised that glass ceiling, as they say about her, and hit that 170 finish. It reverberated around the sporting world, never mind the darting world. So the subject matter for you, Matt Pyman Hill, is the Fallon factor. What do you make of it?
Well, how long you got? I suppose this probably needs a video of its own, to be honest.
About 2 minutes.
Yeah, just to summarise. First things first, fair play to her, because the quality of dart she had to show to get through the group was worthy of
100% agree.
Worthy of
100%.
anyone. It wasn't. You can have your qualms about how she gets into these tournaments and the handouts and all that, and that debate will rage on. But what you can't doubt is that when she had to produce, she produced, and to take out, to win up, have to win 4 legs on the spin against someone like Clements, and it wasn't like Clements necessarily dipped. He was still scoring pretty well. She found 180s, she found a 141, a 170, a 126. I mean, it was really top draw that. Fair play to her. There is this impact. I think we saw it with Mensah, where sometimes, Mensah's been scarred by it previously, having lost to her at the Worlds. And I think that did have an impact on Mensah. And he's hit and miss in his form at the moment, but there's no doubt that he played worse because it was Fallon Sherrock. I think he beat himself a little bit. But what you can't question is her performance after that. I thought she was excellent. And look, she can only beat what's in front of her. So if these players aren't playing up to their normal standards, that's not Sherrock's fault. And just judging her on the numbers, I thought she showed tremendous bottle in a lot of big moments to, one dart in hand at doubles. She was hitting them. She was finding ton 40s when she needed them in legs. She wasn't ever uncompetitive. So even when she lost, massive credit to her. Does she, this debate about her getting handed a tour card, I'll maybe go into this on a separate video, but I think she should earn a tour card the proper way. Just like anybody else, I think it's an insult to people who are on that borderline of getting a tour card or not.
I think it's an insult to Lisa Ashton. As well. She has earned her tour card.
It is, and I think this is people's livelihood as well that we're talking about as well. It's not just like a token gesture. This is people's job. If you miss out on a tour card to someone who's had a handout, even though they haven't been able to get it by the proper means, like if she can play like she played on the television, she'll get a tour card no problem. So just go and do that, get the tour card properly. Do I think she's going to end up in the Premier League next year? Yes, I do, 100%.
Yes, yeah. Just she was excellent. She was excellent, Pyman. I thought he was comfortable against Mensah. You can say what you like about Mensah's form. I think that when we've seen her previously say at the Worlds, not last year, the year before, it was a clutch finishing that was excellent. But we can see improvements in her scoring. I think her scoring's improved vastly. I didn't watch any of the women's series this year, but this is the first time I've seen her for a while. I think her scoring's improved vastly since the Worlds 2 years ago, and she averaged over 29 legs in the quarter final against Snake, 98.9. Now, of the other 3 quarterfinals, that's a bigger average than the other 3 winners of the quarterfinals, which is Price, Wade, and Smith. Smith and Price were only very slightly behind, but it is higher than them. And it's a big story and it's getting people talking. You would have seen the coverage as well, Oz, and no doubt people at work mentioning to you, this Fallon Sherrock. Well, what do you make of it?
She was excellent. You've got to give people credit for when they do perform like that. She was in, say, a horrendous group, but she was in a difficult group. Like you say, spare a thought for Big Gabe Clements, who battered Mike DeDecker, got a good win over Snake. And then I referred back to it, when we were talking. I said, not saying he capitulated, but it just seemed to buckle a little bit in that final. Basically he needed to win 1 leg. What did Sherrock need? She needed to win 5-3.
3-1 down, and she needed the last 4, I think.
And that was it. Yeah, so he needed 1 leg. Yeah, and she was excellent, absolutely excellent. It was like back against the wall stuff, and she just seemed to thrive under it. Won't even say, I'll say the crowd played a big factor, in the World, every time, Ted Everts, Mensah were throwing, it was big boos all the time. there was some boos, but I don't think it was all the time this time either. And she just seemed to relish, playing on the big stage, and she absolutely destroyed Suljovic. I think that's, she's just got the wood over Suljovic completely. And if they were to meet in the World Championships, I think Sherrock, would probably go off favourite.
She was 11-5 to beat Mensur because I looked and I was tempted. But I didn't.
She won't be that short again against Suljovic. No way.
Just one thing on Mensur. When I say about him beating himself, I don't mean to discredit Sherrock at all. But in his group, in his group, he averaged 105 and 101. Against Sherrock, he averaged something like 84. I mean, he obviously is a mental block a little bit. And look, if you've suffered that kind of defeat before, you're gonna be putting pressure on yourself not to suffer it again. It's
unlucky for Mensur.
It is, yeah, it is.
Because he'll
be desperate to avoid her in the world, won't he?
I think she's
massively.
So forget that Nordic Masters rubbish. So she's played 3 people in the Worlds and 5 people in the Grand Slam. So she's played 8 games, and 2 of them have been against Mensur Suljovic.
Yeah, a quarter of them have been against Suljovic. Yeah.
That's unlucky. So it is a big story, and obviously one we'll touch back on. But it's quite simple for me. I thought she was excellent in the Grand Slam, and if she can qualify as a tour card holder and through the proper means, then I've got absolutely no problem with that. Good luck to her. I do think she'll be in the Premier League, and that doesn't really bother me because that's perfect for the Premier League. It's Barney went on a retirement tour on the Premier League, So I've got no problem with that. It's a marketing tool. It's not ranked. That's fine by me. Absolutely fine. Hi man, this is probably one for you. Certainly the answer for me is no. But as the Grand Slam changed any of your opinions ahead of the Worlds directly in regard to the betting, and have you had any bets on the Worlds as a result of the Grand Slam?
The short answer is no, because I think I touched on it. I haven't changed my opinion. I touched on it before in the preview and in this video. I don't think that we knew anything. We learned anything about Gerwyn Price that we didn't already know. He's in very good form. He's picking and choosing his tournaments. He's going to average around that ton plus mark. It's going to take a good performance to beat him. I'm always open-minded about taking on people at the World. I don't like to get involved at super short prices because it is a tough tournament to win. And you can always, for all the positives you can find about the people at the top of the market, there are chinks in the armour, and you can find reasons to take them on. I mean, Gerwyn Price wasn't an outright favourite last year. He was a decent, value selection. Just as when Peter Wright won it, as when Peter Wright won it, he was a value selection, and he's never been the same sort of price range since. Could you be confident about Van Gerwen? You could certainly make a case for him. I don't think you could be super confident given the way he's gone out of tournaments this year. Gerwyn Price, yes, he's a worthy favourite, but does he have questions to answer? For me, he does. He's won 1 World Championship, and it was behind closed doors. Now, when you care as much as Gerwyn Price does about the World Championship, and we have seen him, he does sometimes have games where he almost beats himself, like he gets too emotionally involved with the other player. When he just plays the board and plays himself, he's very, very hard to beat. You're going to have a 10 out of 10 performance, a la what Dave Chisnell did to MVG last year. And that's the other issue as well. You can just bump into someone who has the game of their life. And these middle-of-the-road players are more likely to have the game of their life against a Price or a Van Gerwen because it's their big moment. All eyes on them, pressure off. So there's always that danger. It hasn't changed my opinion that Gerwyn Price is the most likely winner of the World Championship. I think Johnny Clayton has a fantastic chance of winning the World Championship. I rate him and Michael Van Gerwen's chance very similarly. I am slightly worried that I believe Johnny Clayton is going to end up in Gerwyn Price's section of the World Championship draw unless he gets to the semi-finals or better of the Players' Championship. I need to check that, but that is, I think, what I read.
That sounds right.
Definitely one to monitor because I think he's in that. It's just the way the rankings, the seeds go in a set order, and I think Clayton is going to end up in the same part as Price, which is not a surprise because we've seen them bumping into each other a lot in recent tournaments. But it would be nice if you could keep them separate, and that could be a semi-final or a final because I think, they both got a great chance of going that deep. And no, I remain interested in some of the names that weren't at the Grand Slam that will be at the Players' Championship as dark horses, Nathan Aspinall and Ryan Searle being 2 of those.
And the thing with, it's funny you mentioned that, leads me right on, because you mentioned those two. The thing with those two is they've missed the Grand Slam. Either of them could easily go out quite early in the Players' Championships this week and still play quite well. So they're going under the radar again. So when you're looking on the exchange prices in 2 or 3 weeks for the Worlds, players like them, if they are an unlucky loser on Friday or Saturday this week in Minehead, there could be value further down the line. I've not pulled the trigger on any bets for the World Championships yet. I've not nailed my colours to any mast. Have you, Ozzy?
Not yet, no. I've got a couple in mind. Well, I've got one actually, and that was one that I think me and Pyman put on about 12 months ago, and that was Mervyn King when he got to the. Oh, what tournament was it?
He made this final. He made the Players' Championship final. Did he not? He got beat by Van Gerwen last year.
Yeah, but that was before the Worlds. It was the Masters when he. Yeah. It was funnily enough, it was him and Johnny Clayton, and it's crazy to think. Yeah. The winner of that match was getting in the Premier League. Johnny Clayton went on to win that match and then win the Premier League.
And
so
Premier League.
How different it could have been.
Yeah.
So Merv is the only bet at the moment. I'm just looking at the prices now. I think I need to look at the draw properly, obviously, but I think Rob Cross at 28-1. I know he got knocked out in the quarterfinal, but it's a guy who is in form as well. And like I said, he's had a very good year. And this is the best Rob Cross we've seen him probably since he won the World Championships. He looks good. He looks confident in the way he's throwing. And, had it not been, for a sluggish start against James Wade, probably would have turned him over. And James Wade is probably another one. I'm not saying he can go on and win it, but I think at the moment he's priced at 50-1 on the exchange. If he doesn't do anything in this, he might well go off a little bit bigger. He's a difficult person to beat at times. And again, he's finding form at the right time. Again, seems happy. In interviews after the matches, they seem a bit of a chore sometimes. He seems happy enough to talk, and he seems confident in what he's doing. So they're just two players immediately, that just off the back of this tournament. But we did speak about Rob Cross prior to that. James Wade, not so much. And then the other one was, Ryan Searle, who, again, on the floor has been outstanding. Again, will probably be interesting to see what draw he gets, but he's always worth a punt. I think, from memory, he had a fairly solid last Worlds last year.
He's had a couple of good runs at the Worlds. He's been into that last 16 region.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to say Fallon Sherrock, but it will be interesting to see how she performs at the Worlds again. Because, on that stage, there's nothing wrong in saying it. She's a difficult person to beat because you do play the crowd and her, and she plays her best darts in front of a crowd, not on a floor.
Right, well, we're going to have it is the Players' Championship finals this weekend. We're not going to go in any detail today. We'll be back later in the week. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the 64 top players from the tour over 3 days. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am, over 3 days. Betting galore, banana skins galore. The draw's already out. The betting's already out with the sponsors. Check that out, and we will be back with that later this week. In the interest of time, final piece regarding the Grand Slam or any other business. There's been plenty of talk about changes to the Grand Slam and people, the format, the qualification. Pyman, what would you do to it if you was in charge at the PDC? And I do note that I think this year, for the first time, given that it was only PDC involvement this year, that the Grand Slam was a ranking event for the first time. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's right. No, I think it does need change. I think the scheduling needs change. I think the semi-finals and finals on one day, they're too long. The matches are too long, and I think we saw it with Wade and Wright that sometimes with that week you just need it spread a little bit more sensibly. For Peter Wright in particular had 28 legs earlier in the day.
Really disappointing.
And it just killed him. He looked absolutely zapped, and he even said it in his interview afterwards. He made a joke of it, he made light of it and said, "I'm old, I can't do it anymore." But that must be irritating to know, to be heading out into the final already feeling like you've been through an absolute slugfest and knowing that it's taken a lot out of you. Whereas if you get that day's rest, like you do in 99% of major tournaments, then you could come back refreshed with a night's sleep and know that you can give it a good go. And I felt a bit sorry for the fans that were in attendance for that final and for the semi, the first semi. It was just a non-event. Like if you'd got semi-final or final tickets, you expect to see, even if it's not a close game, you expect to see a high quality game, and they weren't. So I would definitely have a look at that. Just wondering.
Just on that though, Pine Man.
Go on.
This weekend in the Players' Championship, the quarters, semis, and final are all on the same day, the Sunday. Best of 19, best of 21, best of 21.
Yeah, that is a fair point. There is a difference between first to 10 and first to 16. I know it's it's 3 games instead of 2. I guess that tournament, it's 3 days, and by the 3rd day, you know that, okay, I've maybe, I've played a lot of darts, but this is my last day. These guys in the Grand Slam, by the time they get into the final, have played, it's the best part of 6 or 7 out of 9 days. And you can have some really tough games in this, because the group stage, even at the group stage, that 3rd group stage game with the permutation and stuff can become a slugfest. I mean, fair play to Fallon Sherrock, because that, the mental energy it must have took to get through that. I think she was just riding the crest of a wave, really. Because normally you often see somebody, how often do you see it in the Worlds? We've seen it with Dimitri Chisnell over the years, where like you have your big game and it takes so much out of you that the next game you're just spent. And that's what we see at the Grand Slam. And I think these 2 or 3 day events, you don't see it as much. But when you're over the course of a week, make sure you're giving players that appropriate amount of rest so that we can get a good final. It's good for the players and good for the viewers. And there's no reason why they couldn't put these group stage games to, a little bit more compact, or start a day earlier for the benefit
afternoon
of the showpiece.
session.
Yeah.
Ozzy, the final word is going to go to you as we wrap up our Grand Slam chat. What changes would you make? I'm guessing it might well be qualification.
Correct, yeah. I won't say all of it, because I think it's good to see, different players involved in these tournaments. And what you don't want is just the same players appearing on the big stage every time. But then you get players like, with all due respect, Joe Davis getting a qualification place, and he averaged 66, 73, and 79 in his 3 games. I'm sorry, that's shambolic. And in what is a ranking event, he has no business being on that stage.
I think he had a tennis elbow,
We should have withdrawn then. Well, if you can't perform, in my opinion, he's done. He's probably a player that is 10 times better than he's shown. But at the end of the day, I'll remember him from being awful in this tournament. And again, what was he, the runner-up in the youth tour? Is that really worthy of a position in what is a ranking event? In my opinion, no. I'll go back to it. Lisa Ashton, she's qualified. I know she's got a tour card, but she's doing absolutely nothing on the tour. And I think, again, did Fallon win the women's event and Lisa Ashton became the runner-up or something like that? So, again, in what is a weak field at the moment in terms of women's darts, because that's what it is, the depth isn't there yet. Is it right that we're giving 2 spaces to that? I'm not so sure. I mean, I'll flip it on the other side just quickly. You look at the Players' Championship, and Chaz Barstow is ranked 56. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have a tour card. He missed out on. He missed out. He was one of the most unluckiest players at Q School to miss out, and he's took part in these events, because when people have dropped out through COVID, and he's ranked better than a lot of players who've actually got a tour card now. So I would like to. I don't know what they can do, but I'm sure there's little ways they can tweak it. Do they select players? I'm not sure, but given it's a ranking event now, I don't think they should be just, handing, places out. Mike DeDecker, I know he said he could have proved an upset, but again, how is he qualified? Matt Campbell, I know he said, he's known for losing basically on, because he had a good game with Scott Waits, battered, in pretty much every one of his games. So, yeah, I think there's stuff that can be worked on. I'm not like Mensah or Suljevic. Lucky to be in the tournament again. He's had a dire year.
Yeah, but being runner-up in the World Cup.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Why he was there.
Well, I'll give you a quick win for this tournament. Like you saying, it's a tricky one to solve because whatever you do, people are going to have complaints. But if they're gonna be insistent on this win and you're in policy, then sack off runners-up. Don't let runners-up of tournaments in, right? Because you could fill those spots that were given to runners-up of tournaments with Players' Championship winners.
Man, that's exactly
wins
what
2
I was going to
Players'
say.
Championships, doesn't get in. Callum Ridge wins 2 Players' Championships, doesn't get in. Nathan Aspinall has won a Players' Championship title, didn't get in. Damon Heta has been in multiple finals. There was just so many. Like that Players' Championship, you have 30 events a year. If you win one of them, that should get you in the Grand Slam.
That's the way.
Yeah. And I don't mind the likes of, like Nathan Rafferty, the point of the development tour is if you can reward players like that, that is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In the European development tour with, Rusty J. Rodriguez, again, that's okay. I've nothing wrong with that. Same with Jim Williams, because they showed that, but I don't know why we snuck in, but yeah, Boris Kirchmer again.
They qualified on.
It's that final day qualifier, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
it's a shambles.
Barney got in it. Kirchmer got in it. So anyway, we could be here all night. We've covered all the big issues from the Grand Slam. We've fixed the Grand Slam. We've looked forward to the Players' Championship briefly, and we've told you that Gerwyn Price is now the clear outright favourite for the World Championships that gets underway in less than a month. Time, man. 3 weeks. So yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Pieman. Thanks to Ozzy. We'll hopefully be back, at least 2 of us, possibly 3, by looking at the Players' Championship this weekend. And I'm going to be smashing it. I'm going to bet more over 3 days on the Players' Championship than I am at the World Championship. I think I'm smashing in this weekend, and we'll see how that goes. So thanks for tuning in.